Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to the critical cybersecurity insights you need. We've sifted through a lot of intel, and today we're diving into the threat landscape from June 29th to July 6th, 2025. Our mission, simple: highlight what really matters and give you some actionable takeaways.
That's right. Especially for you folks working in security analysis, SOC teams, IT leadership. Consider this your essential briefing for the week. We'll connect the dots on attacker behaviors, some big wins we saw, and unfortunately some significant setbacks too. It's about understanding why this stuff matters to your organization and what you can actually do about it.
Okay, let's unpack it then. We've got major ransomware news, some pretty impressive law enforcement wins, which is always good to see, and some fresh threats hitting the wild that definitely need to be on your radar. Let's maybe start with the good news first.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's easy to get bogged down, but there are a couple of significant law enforcement wins this week. Really put a dent in cybercrime.
Okay, what was the first big one?
First up, a massive multinational operation led by Europol. They took down a huge crypto investment scam syndicate. I mean, huge. These guys lured thousands of victims, really sophisticated social engineering, fake trading platforms, the whole 9 yards. They laundered something like 540 million. Staggering amount.
Wow, 540 million euros. That's incredible.
Yeah, dozens arrested, assets frozen across multiple countries. It's a big hit to the, the cyber crime as a service supply chain.
Right, hitting their finances. How does disrupting that money flow actually impact these groups long term, do you think?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. When you freeze their assets, arrest the money launderers, you're basically choking off their cash flow. It forces them to scramble, find new ways to cash out, makes things riskier, slower.
Yeah.
It definitely disrupts operations. We saw tactics like phishing for info, that's TFAN98 and MITRE ATT&CK terms, acquiring web services, T1583.006, even messing with authentication certificates, T1648. So for defenders, keep reviewing things like the FTC's crypto scam tips. Make sure your team knows where to report this stuff, because these groups will adapt.
Good point. And there was another big takedown too, wasn't there? Seems like these international collaborations are paying off.
Indeed. A German-Spanish task force. They dismantled another international cyber fraud group. This one was responsible for stealing over 460 million. So another massive haul.
Okay, what was their specialty?
They were deep into business email compromise, classic phishing, social engineering. They used compromised business accounts, really complex money mule networks. Again, over 20 arrests, infrastructure seized, a solid win.
It really seems like these multi-stage attacks are becoming the norm, right? Starting with phishing, then moving through these complex networks.
Absolutely. It underscores how, digital fraud is truly global now, and the attack chains are getting more sophisticated. It's not just one email anymore. They gather victim info, set up mules, then hit you with the BEC.
So where do they go next after a takedown like this?
Well, we expect them to migrate. New domains, maybe fake business fronts, or increasingly we're seeing fraud move onto social media platforms. Their tactics. We're talking Iniris T5066 for phishing, T5089 for gathering identity info, T1659 for stealing client certificates.
So for defenders,
keep refreshing that phishing knowledge. The NASA Phishing Resilience Guide is a good resource. And look into threat hunting tools like Sigma rules for suspicious office file executions. That's often an early warning sign.
All right, let's turn to the less cheerful side, the setbacks. What were the big incidents security teams need to know about from this past week?
Yeah, probably the most concerning was the attack targeting the French government. Looks like it involved Ivanti 0 days. And the attribution is pointing towards Chinese state-sponsored actors.
Ivanti again.
Yeah.
Which vulnerabilities this time?
They rapidly exploited 2 CVEs, CVE 2023-46805 and CVE 2024-20887, both in Ivanti Connect secure appliances, used for initial access, moved laterally, and exfiltrated sensitive data. There are also signs of pretty sophisticated persistence techniques. Seems like part of a broader espionage effort.
The speed is what gets me. It feels like 0 days are weaponized almost instantly now. Why is that happening, and what's the key takeaway for defenders?
You're absolutely right. The speed is, terrifying. The critical insight isn't just that they're fast, it's that the window defenders have to patch critical vulns has basically vanished. You can't just react anymore. You need to be detecting exploitation attempts the moment a CVE drops.
So proactive hunting becomes paramount.
Exactly. It shifts the whole game. They're exploiting public apps, T1190, using valid accounts, T1078, hitting remote services, T1021, pulling data over C2 channels, T1041. So defenders, you have to prioritize CISA-KEVI alerts for Ivanti. Check Ivanti's own advisory directories immediately. Use CISA's detection guidance. Assume your patching window is 0.
Wow, okay. And healthcare took another hit, too, unfortunately. It feels like a constant battleground.
Yeah, S-Health, a pretty large U.S. healthcare provider. They disclosed a breach affecting over 263,000 patients.
Oh, man. How did they get in?
Looks like the usual suspects. Phishing, or maybe compromised credentials, led to exfiltration of sensitive medical and personal data. EHRs, insurance info, the works.
Why is healthcare such a persistent target? Is it purely the data value, or is there more to it?
Well, the data is valuable, sure, but it's also about, often strained IT budgets in healthcare, complex interconnected systems, sometimes legacy tech, and just the sheer volume of sensitive data makes them prime targets for extortion.
Right.
The insight here is that the sector needs to move beyond just compliance. It needs proactive, threat-informed defense. Otherwise, they'll just keep getting hit. We see tactics like using valid accounts, T1078, account discovery, T1087, brute force, T0110, and grabbing data from local systems, T1005.
So, what should healthcare orgs be doing specifically?
Definitely review the HHS high-pay security guidance, but also really dig into healthcare-specific threat intel, ransomware trends for the sector. Understand the nuances.
Okay. And ransomware itself? Always a headache. What was RansomHub up to this week?
They had a busy week, a prolonged 6-day campaign. They were exploiting exposed RDP, remote management tools for initial access, moving laterally. Then they used mimikatz for credential dumping, pulled out sensitive data, then detonated the ransomware. Double extortion playbook.
Using legitimate RMM tools alongside malware. That makes detection tricky, doesn't it?
Exactly. It complicates things. They're living off the land, blending in.
So for the folks on the front lines, what's the key defensive move against that?
It means you need urgent, really granular monitoring of tools like RDP and RMM. Watch credential access patterns like a hawk. They're using remote services, T1021, RDP for execution, T1569.002, OS credential dumping, T1003, and data encrypted for impact, 1486.
Practical steps.
Implement CISA's RDP security best practices. Seriously. Learn to spot RMM tool misuse. It's not always bad, but often abused. Use Sigma rules for mimikatz. And critically, have a solid ransomware response playbook. And practice it. Don't wait until you need it.
Good advice. Then there was a supply chain breach affecting millions. That's where things get really complex for organizations, right? Their risk extends way beyond their own walls.
It's a fundamental shift, absolutely. Grocery giant Ahold Delhaize. Over 2 million customer records compromised. Compromised third-party systems. It just reinforces this expanding threat from the digital supply chain.
So the insight is, your security is only as strong as your weakest vendor link.
Pretty much. It's about the whole ecosystem now. Attackers target suppliers to scale their impact, hitting potentially hundreds of downstream customers through one compromise. Visibility and risk management across that supply chain. It's a huge, often overlooked gap.
Which MITRE techniques pop up here?
We see supply chain compromise, T1195 obviously, also account discovery, T1087, and grabbing data from cloud storage, T4530, which is common with third-party breaches.
What can defenders do? This feels like a tough one to control.
It is tough, but you need to start. Consult CISA's Supply Chain Risk Management Guide, NIST 800-161. Audit your vendors. Limit their access. Understand T1195 inside and out. It's essential now.
Okay, shifting gears. What's new and emerging? What threats just popped up this week that teens need to brace for?
Well, CL0p ransomware group is actively exploiting a new RCE vulnerability, remote code execution.
Okay, how are they using it?
It's part of their exfiltration stage. They hit unpatched systems, use this flaw to escalate privileges, deploy data stealing tools before they even think about encrypting. It's a clear move towards maximizing that data theft for double extortion pressure.
So detection can't just focus on the encryption anymore. The DAN exfil is key.
Absolutely. You have to look earlier in the chain, spot that RCE attempt, the bulk data movement. With double, even triple extortion, the data is the main prize. Techniques involved: exploit public-facing app, T1190, exfil over C2, T10041, and then data encrypted for impact, T4086.
Action.
Monitor Cl0p threat feeds, hunt for T141 activity specifically. Use Cl0p ERA rules if you have them.
Got it. And CISA's KIV list keeps growing. Anything notable added recently?
Yep, they added vulnerabilities in telemessage and TMSGNL. These were seen in real-world attacks. They allow authentication bypass, arbitrary code execution on messaging servers.
Why are messaging platforms such hot targets right now?
They're attractive because they often bridge internal and external comms, hold sensitive info, credentials, makes them great for initial access, but also for pivoting inside a network. It's a rich target environment. So prioritize visibility into auth logs for these systems. Patch them immediately, poor CTI guidance. The MITRE techniques are exploit public-facing app, T1190, valid accounts, T1078, and modify authentication process, T1556. Review vendor advisories, use Sigma rules for failed login attempts.
We're also seeing more localized campaigns, you mentioned, not just broad attacks.
Indeed, there's dCRAT malware being spread via spear phishing. It's specifically impersonating Colombian government entities. They're exploiting local trust, using familiar-looking documents to bypass generic filters. Very targeted, very effective in that region.
So that implies attackers are doing more homework, more reconnaissance. What's the takeaway for global organizations?
Exactly. This level of localization points to advanced recon and target profiling. It's not just mass spamming anymore. SOCs, especially in government finance or operating in LATAM, need to expect more of these region-specific threats.
Techniques.
Classic phishing, T1466, command and scripting interpreter, T1059, often PowerShell and user execution, T1204. Defenders, look at CISA's guidance on detecting phishing lures. Use Sigma rules for suspicious PowerShell. Monitor IOC feeds like ThreatFox for dCRAT indicators.
And finally, a new R8 Sainbox. You said it's particularly stealthy.
Yes, Sainbox RAT. There's a new variant using a rootkit-based loader that's designed specifically to evade AV and EDR detection and maintain persistence.
Rootkit-based. That's concerning for endpoint security.
Very. It's delivered via malspam, exploit kits. It has advanced anti-analysis features, kernel tampering, seems aimed at enterprises, government targets for long-term undetected access.
This sounds like a real escalation in the endpoint security arms race, doesn't it? What does this mean for EDR and AV effectiveness?
It absolutely is an escalation. Rootkit delivery is meant to defeat modern EDR kernel monitoring. It seriously raises the risk of long-term compromise going completely unnoticed. They're using exploitation for privilege escalation, T2068, create or modify system process, T1543, process injection, T1055.
So how do you fight that?
You need advanced endpoint visibility. Use sysmin configurations tuned for driver and rootkit detection. Focus on preventing malicious drivers from loading in the first place. And keep up with IOCs for Sainbox from sources like Netscope. It's deep kernel stuff, not just surface scanning.
Okay, wow. So pulling this all together, looking at all these incidents this week, what are the big patterns you're seeing?
Yeah, a few trends are really accelerating. First, that rapid weaponization of CVEs, state actors, criminals. They're jumping on new vulns within hours. The patch window is gone. Second, the ransomware playbook keeps evolving. They're blending living off the land tools, RDP, RMM, mimikatz with their custom malware. Stealing data first, encrypting second for maximum leverage.
And that supply chain risk seems to be constantly growing, amplifying the potential impact.
Definitely. That's the third point. Supply chain and vendor attacks are surging. Attackers compromise one provider to hit many downstream. Forces you to think way beyond your own perimeter. And fourth, that localized phishing and malware delivery, more targeted lures, government impersonation, exploiting regional trust, shows deeper attacker reconnaissance.
So if you're running a SOC leading IT, what should be top of mind right now? What are the key recommendations based on this week's intel?
Okay, top recommendations, urgent ones. First, patch management and KEV monitoring. Treat every CTI alert like a fire alarm. Automate monitoring. Think hours, not days, for response. Second, initial access defense. Harden those public-facing apps. Enforce MFA everywhere. Use SIME rules to spot weird logins, especially right after a big CVE drops. Think T1190, T1078.
Really lock down that front door.
Exactly. Third, supply chain risk review. Audit your vendors. Limit their access least privilege principle. Update your incident response plans for their breach impacting you. Fourth, ransomware preparedness. Run purple team exercises, simulate credential theft, lateral movement. Actually rehearse your IR playbook. Don't let it be shelfware.
Get hands-on practice.
Yes. Fifth, advanced threat hunting. Actively look for rootkit activity, unsigned drivers, kernel tampering. Use EDR, use sysmin. Go beyond the automated alerts. And finally, phishing defense. Make your simulations more frequent, more realistic. Use regional lures if relevant. Keep your TI feeds updated to block new badness.
Looking ahead just briefly, what do you see on the horizon? What should we brace for next?
I think we'll see even shorter patch to exploit times. SOCs need to get faster. Vulnerability management needs to be near real time. We'll likely see shifting money laundering tactics too, as law enforcement cracks down on crypto, maybe moving to less regulated channels, privacy coins, who knows. And definitely expect more advanced malware techniques, rootkits, EDR evasion becoming more mainstream. The technical bar for detection is just going to keep rising. It's an arms race, like you said.
Well, that was a packed week. Hopefully, walking away from this, you feel a bit more informed, maybe a bit more prepared for what's out there.
Yeah, our goal is always to take all this complex intel and boil it down into actionable insights, help you prioritize, see the bigger picture, stay safe out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the latest threat intelligence. Remember, staying informed really is your best defense. Keep sending us your questions, your observations, and we'll keep digging.